afternoon, lovely people. If it's afternoon where you are, how are you all? I do hope you are well. I'm grand. Well, parts of my body aren't, but I'm indoors. Oh my giddy goodness. I'm just doing the last little bit of chopping. I'm going to get a fasolada on the go. More of that in a sec. And then some other stuff to do together. I'm at home because the weather forecast said we were going to have a full day of rain today. It hasn't rained a drop. But you know what, never mind. They forecast rain, so I thought, right, okay, give myself a list of jobs to do indoors. There's always something needs doing. The only thing, oh, and also, I'll speak about this in a sec as well. I had a delivery, a surprise. Well, I knew the delivery was coming, hence also stay in. I didn't know what it was going to be. I'll show you later. Yeah, it's a bit annoying not to be in the garden because, oh my goodness, I am loving being back to the garden. Why did it take me so long to get back there? Well, you know, in fairness, I was busy doing kitchen stuff and other stuff, and it was raining a lot, but never mind the past. The present is, yeah, I'm just loving being back. It felt so good to get my hands in the dirt. I came home, one of my gardening gloves, so these two fingers, I'll do it that way around so I'm not being rude, these two fingers, the ends had gone, and I hadn't cut my nails at that stage. So I've been gardening all day, come home, my gloves are off obviously, these two fingers, the fingernails, were black with soil underneath. And I mention it because I bumped into my friend on the way home. Do you remember the friend? Oh, is the light going to be an issue? Because look how the light is streaming in. It's gorgeous. It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm just getting my dinner ready. Yeah, it's such beautiful light today for a rain day. Yes, do you remember the friend who I said I made the calendula balm for the baby and the little stuffed with lavender patchwork Liberty Heart dangle for the mobile? It's her. And I'm sorry I haven't caught you up on her news. She had a baby boy in December, middle of December. He's cute as a button. Yeah, he just seems really, he's one of these babies, he just seems so content all the time. He's just started teething, so he's a little bit cranky from time to time, but generally he just seems so chilled out. Anyway, I bumped into her on my way home, and of course my first instinct is to go and clutch the baby, but I sort of went in and went, oh no, I better not cuddle him because I'm filthy, and I put my hand, it's like black hand. But yes, it's an absolute delight to be back to the garden. My soul is so happy. My body isn't, my body is really objecting, but I'm being sensible. Hang on a sec, let me get my chopped veggies in. I'm doing fasolada. Maybe I'll put a link to the recipe at the end. That's the Greek bean police. So I've just melted some onions and garlic. Oh my god, am I going to get my beans in? I've gone a bit mad today. Celery, carrots, some potato just behind you. I don't think I'm going to get them all in. The beans, masses of them. It's the gorgeous big, let me show you. Look at the size of that. Gigantes by name. Can I get them all in? Go on, get them in, girl. I've got no liquid in there yet. This is going to get messy. Portion of last year's tomatoes. I might need to just make up a bit more stock. I've only got half a litre. Half a litre of stock. I just want to get this on the go because I do, excuse me, I do simmer it for an hour and a half on a really, really, really low heat. I've been greedy. Hang on, let's pop a bit more water in. Yeah, that'll just about do it. Yeah, it's one of those to give, you know, a nice, long, gentle simmer. But because I've got the cast iron pan, you know, I'll see how tender all the veggies are after about an hour or so. Hang on, I just need to make up my little bunch of thyme. Yeah, see how tender everything is after an hour. Have a bit of a taste. And then it may be that I turn the heat off, but keep the lid on and leave it for another half an hour, even up to an hour. This works really nicely when it's warm as well as when it's hot. I don't mean the weather temperature, I mean the temperature of the food. Little bunch of thyme to go in. Yes, so back to the garden. Bumping into a friend in the high street, she's well, baby's well, I was filthy. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's great. It's great to be back in the garden. It is a bunch of work, and really annoyingly, looking at the forecast, we've got a couple of dry days and then we've got, it looks like 2 weeks of rain. So I've kind of come up with an adjusted plan of how best to use my time. Because there are things I can do inside the shed, seed sowing, what have you, as in sowing in pots and modules, but I'll describe that more in a separate video when we're actually in the garden and I'm actually doing it. But yeah, it's a joy to get back there. It's going to be a slow process. Each year I've got slower and slower at doing things, that's fine. But of course each year, you know, the weeds get a bit less and the soil gets a bit better, so I think it's doable. The reason I'm mentioning that today is because it was partly because of these beans I'm going to cook. The fact is, my sort of frugality, my ability to live without a wage, and yes, I do have income, but it's not set, it's not fixed, it's not guaranteed. It's scary, you know, and there's no sick pay, there's no holiday pay, there's nothing like that. So it's really important, it has been really important for me over these years to have this backbone of growing the majority of my own food. And you know what, over the years I've been able to do that because I've got an allotment. Yay! Thank goodness for that phone call in September 2009. Someone was asking me or commenting the other day about, you know, well done on growing your own food for the last 6 years. It's been going on longer than that. And even before I lived in this flat, in my previous flat I had a garden, I was growing veggies there. I've always done a bit of veggie growing, but obviously sort of ramped up in the last few years. And it's one of the reasons in a way of me starting YouTube even in the first place was to share the joy that I get from growing my own food. It's insanely satisfying. It gets more and more satisfying whenever I go to shops and see prices and I think, wow, I'm really, really helping myself. You know, if you remember a couple of years ago, some of you may not have been watching then, I've done it twice now, I think 2013 and then again in 2019, I'm not sure, don't quote me. But every time I harvested anything, I weighed it and made a note. And then at the end of the year, kind of totted all that up to work out, okay, now if I'd had to buy that, what's the comparable price in the shops? And I looked, and it wasn't even for organic food, because organic food is more expensive. But I was getting harvests worth £2,000. £2,000, that's crazy. That's like, I don't know, $2,500, maybe $2,750, around that mark, heading towards $3,000. So yeah, that's why I always have and I always will champion a bit of, you know, grow your own, even if it's one pot on your balcony, windowsill, back door, whatever it is, of tomatoes, for example. Because tomatoes, you know, I mean, homegrown tastes great anyway. They can be quite expensive, so yeah, grow your own. Now, part of the reason this has come up is because I've just used a load. I've been really greedy. This is going to make 5, maybe even 6 portions. Let me just see. I'm just waiting for it to come up to the simmer. I've whacked the gas up to get it up to the simmer, and then I can turn it down. So I'm just going to keeping half an eye on it. I've had a mindset for a number of years now, which I'm going to have to kind of change. Well, it will depend on what happens when I move, how much outside space I get. I'm not going to have an allotment again when I move. It's too much to manage, because apart from anything, there's the whole walking to and from the allotment is a little bit too much. But if I get a back garden, say half the size of my allotment, that would be absolutely ideal. If I got a garden the full size of my allotment, I would probably have a bit of it to either lawn or just a little gravelly area for table and chairs. I wouldn't garden the whole lot. But yeah, the mindset thing. So for the last few years, I'm always very aware of how my stock levels are, my food stock levels. Because obviously I'm aware of it because as I'm harvesting, picking things, and generally from about mid-July to the end of September, almost all my meals are picked fresh from the garden. But then we get to about the end of October, and then it's the last of the big harvesting. The squash are harvested, the onions are in, the last of the tomatoes are in, the beans, whether they've been picked to freeze demi-sec, which the gigantes were, or right at the end of the season, those left to dry on the vines. So basically, by about the end of October, beginning of November, everything is harvested, apart from the brassicas, which are going to go through the winter. So I have a really good idea of what I've got. But even so, around about that time, end of October, I do a stock take. I literally count everything. So for example, and I write it down. So I might, you know, I'll count all my white onions, all my red onions, how much by way of potatoes I've got left, because generally by then they're all out of the ground. How many portions of beans, how many portions of tomatoes, because I freeze everything in the, you know, these little takeaway tubs. These equate, this part, I'm always going on about these. They're great because firstly, you know, I can stack a load of these in the freezer. Brilliant. They're so kind of neat and compact. But also one of these is the equivalent, I happen to have one here, of a tin. So if I'm trying a new recipe, I haven't tried a new recipe forever, but if you're doing a recipe and it calls for, say, 1 tin of chopped tomatoes, that's what I've got. Anyway, yeah, so I do this big old stock take of literally everything. I've got 22 squash, whatever it is. And then I can look at that, so we're at the end of October, and I can ration them. I can think, I'm not dead strict, but in general terms, I ration it all to the end of July, middle of August sort of thing, of the following year, because that's when the next harvests are starting to come in. So I can say to myself, right, every week I've got the equivalent of 2 white onions, 2 red onions, 4 portions of beans, 4 portions of tomatoes, half or a whole squash, for example. So that throughout the week as I'm cooking, you know, I kind of know how much and how little to use. So in previous years when we've had an early tomato blight, for example, and so I've got far less tomatoes than normal, I just kind of change slightly what recipes I'm going to do. And I think, right, if I've only got 1 portion of tomatoes per week or 2, I better not do tomato soup, I better do a green soup instead, if you see what I mean. And for the last couple of years, the bean harvests haven't been great because we've been so dry. And obviously last summer, we can call it now, can't we? We were hot, 42 degrees in the UK. Are you kidding me? Anyway, so so I've been quite stingy with my use of beans this winter, and it's been 1 or 2 portions per week. Anyway, I did a count up the other day and I thought, actually, I've got enough for 1.5 portions a week from now to the end of July. So yeah, one week I might only use 1 portion, the following week I can think, right, I can use 2 portions. The reason I say I need to get out of this mindset is, of course, if I run out, I can go to the blimmin' shops and buy a tin. I've been so used to not buying food or I do buy food, of course I do. I buy rice, I buy lentils, I buy oil, I buy lemons, I buy, can't think of anything, bread from time to time, I buy cheese from time to time. What I mean is, I don't buy vegetables, apart from the occasional fennel as a treat. Do you remember? Was it in my treats for tenner last year or the Christmas before? Anyway, so, my attitude for the last few years has been, if it runs out, I don't eat it. Simple as that. When the potatoes are finished, that's it. No more potatoes until the following year. Onions run out? So this year, again, another poor crop last year was the onions. So this year, in the end of January or end of February? I've lost track of time. I did buy some onions. End of February. So when I was looking at the beans last night, I thought, well, you don't need to be quite so strict with the rationing, Vivi. If you run out, go and buy a tin. And I know quite a few folk have said, yeah, but if you're not growing your own, how will you afford to eat? So part of the thinking about having a pared down garden this year, and in future, hopefully it will be a smaller, but it will be my own back garden, is that it just doesn't cost me as much time. It doesn't take me as much time to produce a bit less food. So because it's taking me less time, that frees up time for me to do sewing, as in needle and thread sewing. All makes sense, doesn't it? So yeah, I'm giddy to be back to the garden. I'm not giddy about what it does to my body, but it's worth it. Who was it saying in comments the other day, it should be fun, not drudgery. The fact of the matter is, when you're growing on quite a big scale, sometimes it is drudgery. Sometimes it is sheer blimmin' hard work, and sometimes it hurts, but it's still worth it. Not only because of the reward of the food that I produce, you produce, whatever, but because there are just such beautiful moments. I mean, literally every time I'm in the garden, I'll come home, there's always at least one beautiful moment that sticks in my mind and carries me through the next 12, 24, 36 hours, whatever. So worth it. Right, now, it's getting steamy in here. Can I turn this down yet? I think so. Yeah, let's turn that right down to just a little gentle simmer. I'll keep the lid on it for now because there's a little less liquid and tomato in there than normal. Well, there's the same amount, but I've just put way more veggies in there than usual. So I don't want too much of the liquid to evaporate. Normally, it's cooking for this long, long time, and some of it does evaporate, so that liquid, that sauce, if you like, gets thicker and thicker and thicker. It doesn't need to, so the lid can stay on. Right, so the other thing I said I'd been waiting in today for delivery. We might go and sit in the drawing room. We might decline to the drawing room. It's not decline, is it? What's the word? We recline. No, withdraw. We might withdraw to the drawing room. I had a delivery, and part of it's food. It's so lovely. I'll show you in a sec. Some of it was refrigerated, items. There's some cheese, gorgeous little truffles of cheddar, and there's a Gruyere, and there's a Stilton. Can't wait. But they came in this kind of, I suppose, insulated bag. Great. But with this insert, now I don't know if you're going to get a sense of it, but can you get a sense? It's like, I don't know, it's weird. It's like really soggy silly putty in there. It's incredibly yummy to do. Oh, it's a little stress toy. And I was checking on the back that this can be refrozen and reused however many times. So I thought, actually, that's great. It won't take up too much room in the freezer. And then if I go to my sister's and if I do a load of cooking like I did, again, pop this in there, pop it in my suitcase, keep the food fresh on its way up there. Brilliant. It does say that it can be, the contents are non-toxic and they can be rinsed down the drain, and then the bag can be recycled. But either way, I'm going to keep that, pop it in the freezer for my use in future. Right, what's next? So, next job, oh, hang on a sec, I'm really stiff the last couple of days. The next job, I might need to sit down before I do this, because I've done enough standing for the minute. Do you remember my mantra? Do a bit, sit a bit, do a bit, sit a bit. But I said I wasn't going to do this, didn't I? I'm going to sow, I think I've got 21 pots in here. I am going to start a few tomatoes at home. Just because. It's quite late to be starting the tomatoes. And the idea is, I'm still going to do this, is to start some in the cold frame. I'll do them in little pots and then I'll put them into one of my little propagators. It's not heated or anything, it's just the extra layer of protection. So in a propagator and then into the cold frame with the cold frame shut up. So it should retain a bit of warmth in the evening. But I don't know, I suddenly got a bit paranoid, suddenly doing that, doubting myself. And I simply cannot imagine my garden without tomatoes and some tomato cares. Because it's, for me, my tomato time is me and Grandad time. Because I always think of him when I'm doing it. The smell makes me think of him. It's Grandad time, so I have to have tomatoes. So I think I'll do those in a sec. I've got a little bit of compost I've dragged up to the flat. But this is all I'm doing indoors. Honestly, in previous years, by about now actually, I'd be carting bags of seedlings to the plot every single day, at least one trip every day. Peppers, celery, tomatoes. What else do I start at home? Cucumbers, all the squash, courgettes, ad infinitum. Ain't happening. Ain't happening. I'm making life easier for myself. But I figured, well, 21 of these, when I pop them on, it'll be 2 trips to get them all down there. That's doable. Because I'd be going at least twice anyway to the plot for whatever reason. So I think, do you know what? Let's have a little sit down for a mo before I start chucking compost around. It's compost time. I'm so happy to have dirty hands again. I'm not right when I'm clean. That's better. Little sit down. It's probably the worst place to sit in terms of lighting for a video, but it's just really lovely to sit here and make the most of this last bit of light today, because it's, you can tell it's really quite bright, isn't it? Can you just about see in the corner? Hold on. I've got my, hang on a sec. I've got my heather plants here. They're all still in one pot. These are the plants that Heather, goodness knows how, she did great packaging, managed to get through the post to me for the kitchen. They've just been sitting there for now because one of the things I need to remember is to bring some pots back from the garden. So far I keep forgetting. I've written it on a piece of paper now, so hopefully I won't. So yes, my goodness, I've had some lovely little bits of post as well that I want to share with you. But just as I was saying about that, those kind of freezer bag, Such a gorgeous hamper from Joanne. Thank you so much, darling. She, yeah, she knew what I needed. And it struck me, it's, how to put it, it's been a bit of a tricky time. I know I keep sort of saying that, but I don't need to go into things and don't need to go on one, but it's been a bit of a tricky time, and this is like a sort of a cuddle in a box, a cuddle via way of food. And I think it's very easy, isn't it, if, if life's getting a bit stressful, a bit aggy, that our diet can go out of the window. I don't mean diet as in losing weight diet, I mean diet as in what we eat, our nutrition can go a bit out of the window. So it's one thing I am aware of, and I'm trying to make sure that I cook for myself and eat, really good nutritious food, and food which comforts me as well. So I'm getting that double whammy of, yes, it's good and nutritious, but also, it just makes me feel nice. And fasolada is definitely one of those. Curry, I'll make a curry in a couple of days. The fast I'm making now, that will do 4 or 5 portions. But fennel risotto, that's another of my comfort foods. And everything Joanna sent in this hamper is definitely a comfort food. But it's kind of what she sent, there's some really rich stuff here. It's kind of naughty, like the cheeses, and there are some, I don't know this brand, but there's, you're not going to be able to see, I told you the light's going to be tricky, isn't it? If I hold it here, some olives, these lovely crackers, which are walnut, honey, and extra virgin olive oil, little crackers for my cheese. The thing about eating these kind of foods is, look, they're expensive to start with. They're not something one would have every single day. They're not a treat if you have them every day. I've said that sort of thing before, but also, I want to go slowly with these because they're rich in 2 ways. They're rich as in they're rich on my stomach, but they're rich as in to buy. They're not something any of us are going to go out and buy as part of our weekly shop every week. So enjoy things like this. Enjoy them slowly, and it's that, like I said, it's that cuddle, that nurturing quality of food, not depressed eating. I suppose that's the point I'm trying to make. This isn't kind of like depression eating, just eating bags and bags of crisps and chocolate and Big Mac and fries. Not that I would go for a Big Mac and fries, but we can comfort eat and end up just shoving ourselves full of junk that's awful, and it's probably going to make us feel worse as well, probably sharpen our skin and etc. Or we can comfort eat treasure, real kind of beautiful quality foods, but just a small amount of them, a small amount, really savoured. Oh, what a comfort. There are also a couple of beers in the hamper. One, Camden Hells. This really is bad lighting for us, isn't it? I wonder if I can swing all around a bit more. Let me see if I can shuffle you around. Hang on. I don't know if that's made it worse, because I think now I'm squinting a bit, and I'm pink-cheeked from the kitchen, but also the first bit of colour from the garden. Yes, the beers. One is called Camden Hells. It's a London brewery. I'm guessing it's in Camden. Does it say where they brew? Brewed and canned in the UK. So I've never tried it. It's a lager. My plot neighbour Catherine, her and her partner, they sometimes have one of these in the garden. One of the others is called Seven Brothers. It says a hoppy ale. Now I think Seven Brothers is, do you remember the other day and I was talking about, we went to Regent's Park to the open air theatre. I think it was a Seven Brothers that I had that night. Now that night I had the alcohol-free one, because I love the taste of lager, but I didn't want an alcohol one that evening. Anyway, it was gorgeous, but this is is it a pale ale rather than a lager? lovely. But yeah, back to that thing about not being, you know, a glutton about these things. You know, once upon a time, I used to love going to the pub on a Friday night, or it's not always a Friday night when I was nursing, but whatever night, with a load of mates and having 4, 5, 6 pints. Yum, yum, yum. Great, knees up. These days, I'm perfectly happy to just have one as a treat. So, oh, what a cracking thing, Joanne. Thank you. So yeah, if you're eating food for comfort, eat really good quality food and just a little bit of it, and have the comfort from the fact that it's a real treat. And look, I mean, goodness knows, I know the cost of food, it's just crazy. You know what? That's an incredibly generous gift from Joanne. And I'm thinking, I don't need to go shopping this week. I will go shopping this week, and I normally go with a tenner. I'll double it, I'll do 20 quid, and I'll do another food bank shop. I get emotional. Joanne has treated me to some beautiful food, which means I won't need to go shopping. Let's pay it forward, do a 20 quid shop, and give it to the food bank. Because I know food banks have been saying that donations have been going down a bit. So I really appreciate that this food is luxury, and let's face it, who can afford it at the moment? So I'm so lucky and so grateful. I will pay that forward, so I don't have to feel guilty when I'm eating it. But I also had the lovely Pat. Pat sent me, Pat's in Canada, do you remember the map of Saskatchewan? She sent me a couple of little parcels, surface mail, clever girl. It takes ages to get here on the boat, but it gets here, and that's all that matters, and it's much cheaper. So I've tucked something away for my birthday, but she sent me a little Easter bundle, and I wanted to share a couple of things with you because it just made me smile so much. So instead of an Easter egg, I got cat treats. Rusty and Rosie get an Easter egg too. Isn't that adorable? That's Pat, thank you, that's so thoughtful. Now, just quickly on Rusty and Rosie. So I was in the garden over the whole weekend. On the Saturday I didn't see either of the cats, but there was that guy mowing and being generally quite noisy. Maybe they were frightened away. Then on Sunday, pretty much as soon as I got there, as soon as I sat down, oh, Rosie was there and straight into my lap. My lap apparently wasn't good enough, so she started crawling up my chest until she sort of had the top half here and her face. She was doing that, you know when they rub the side of their cheek? She was doing that on my jawline. I was like, oh, you're pleased to see me. But I didn't see Rusty at all. And I thought, it gave me a bit of cause for concern because he's normally first in the queue. Quite often I'll turn up and he's sitting on the stoop of the shed, or he's in the cold frame, neither. And then later on Sunday afternoon, I saw Gary, who I haven't seen for ages either. And I said, he was coming down my path, because we haven't seen each other for a few weeks, to say hello. And I was like, hi, how are you? Never mind. How's Rusty? Have you seen Rusty? I was just concerned. Anyway, yes, Gary had seen him all of last week. So Rusty is around. Apparently he's fine. Apparently he just wasn't around this weekend. So when I see, next time I'm in the garden, Rusty and Rosie are going to have a late Easter treat. I got an Easter treat. There were all sorts of bits of chocolates, including Toblerone. Do you remember them? I mean, I haven't had a Toblerone since, oh my God, decades. I don't think I've had a Toblerone since probably in my 20s. You always get them at the off-duty. Is that what it's called? Off-duty? Off-duty? No, that's what I had as a nurse. What's it called when you're at the ferry terminal or the airport? Off-duty. Duty-free. Don't think about your off-duty, Vivi. Off-duty is what we call the rota, the hours we have to work as nurses. Anyway, yeah, I haven't had one for ages, and I didn't even know they were still in existence. When you can see it's empty, that was mullered. How fabulous. Thank you, lovely. All sorts of little bits and bobs, some note paper, and then a couple of bits of fabric, including this one, which hopefully you'll be able to see. Little honeybees doing their waggle dance over the little honey cells. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. I feel very, very naughty, very lucky. That's the island stuff. I'll talk about that another day. I might have been talking too long already. Oh, let me unbend my knees a sec. That's better. I just needed to stretch without kicking you. I've talked for long enough. So we're going to finish there for now. I've got a book. I've still got that book to tell you about, something about islands that's been bugging me for ages. There's, as I said, there's a ton of work to do in the garden. Really looking forward to getting stuck in. I'm going to bring you along for quite a lot of it. Hopefully not for too much boring stuff like cutting grass and weeding. Just on the subject of cutting grass, someone did a kind of a shocked face when I mentioned stimming the other day. She was like, well, I'm not going to cut. We have this thing in the UK called No Mow May. And it's the idea that we don't do any mowing, we leave our grassy areas to grow wild. And the idea being as well is that it gives chance for wildflowers to grow up through the grasses and set seed. And I completely agree with it in principle, and I think grass verges on motorways and public, roundabouts in the middle of our roads, all that sort of thing, brilliant. Let's not mow, fantastic. In my garden, I will be mowing, strimming, and I'll be getting the grass really short because long grass trips me up. I've tripped twice already, both times in the same place, sort of around the back of my cold frame rosemary bush. It's really long and snaggly there. Fortunately, both times when I tripped and went down onto or into one of my compost bins, so I sort of managed to brace and break my fall on the compost bin. If I hadn't had the compost bin, I'd have gone down. Now, once upon a time I wouldn't care about falling over. I've always fallen over, I'm dyspraxic, but ever since that fall when I landed on both my wrists and broke them, and I was off work, I was out of the ward for 9 months. I was off work for 6 months. I went into the clinical nurse specialist's office for 3 months and worked in a more sort of admin environment. But yeah, it was a disaster. Now, obviously at that stage, I did get some sick pay for the first few months, but after a while, even the sick pay ran out. These days, I don't have sick pay. So for me to fall over and break both my wrists and be out of action for 9 months, unable to use the sewing machine, unable to do the garden, unable to support myself, it's just not worth the risk. So yeah, please, don't anybody be upset or angry with me and offended for the fact that I will be mowing. I know that lass was saying, she's doing her bit for the planet. You know what? Outside of mowing, I try and do my best for the planet with everything else I do in my life. So yeah, forgive me, don't anybody get angry with me. I'm cutting the paths for my own health and safety. All right, lovelies. So yes, there's going to be a ton of gardening videos. There's going to be some household stuff. That's all. Because I've looked at this forecast and seen all these great chunks of rain, that time that I had planned for the garden, I'll use it for some more stuff for the flat, for kind of, thinking in terms of making things look nicer for putting it on the market. So whatever. Tons of stuff coming up, and I feel, I'm sure many of you do too, with this brightness. Finally we're getting some warmth, we're getting some brightness. It changes me so much. Yay, I'm starting to feel human again after, I think it was about, you see, you can tell I'm feeling more human because I'm going to go on a chatty one now, but I think it was about a week, 10 days or so ago that I finally put my thermals away. Oh, thank goodness for thermals this winter, honestly. And I had that set from Ruth too, so I had 3 full sets of thermals, long sleeve tees and my full length long johns leggings. When did I get them? It was about 10th of December or so. Literally from the 10th of December through to about it's a couple of days after my sister, so about the 22nd of April, I wore them constantly in rotation. I was never out of them. And in December, I even wore them in bed, for goodness sakes, it was that cold. But yeah, it's a joy to finally be out of thermals. It's a bit more free. But the biggest joy is what that signifies. It signifies to me that, you know, just have hope, Vivi, have faith. Summer will come. My season is coming again, and I can't wait. And I'm already starting to feel it, and it's wonderful. And I hope some of that will ooze through the screen to you too. If you've been feeling a bit low, a bit sort of unmotivated, whatever it is, then you know what? Let's pull our socks up and get out there again together. We can do it. Good stuff. All right, lovelies, I'm going to go and stir that pot and get myself ready for tomorrow, because it's a big garden day tomorrow. So I'm going to try... Oh, no, I'm going to go and sow my tomatoes, aren't I? Yes! Let's go and do some sowing. I won't show you that on screen. I've shown you that a million times. Well, not a million. Stop exaggerating. I've shown you that, I think, probably in 5 previous years' worth of videos. I need to go. All right, lovelies, I'll see you all again really soon, hopefully next time outside in the sunshine. Oh, I forgot to say cheerio. What am I thinking? Cheerio.